Good morning, students. So, last class we are discussing the concept of primitive escape or your shortest remaining time first scheduling algorithm.
Yes, ma'am. That one, can you repeat again, ma'am? I cannot understand due to network issues, ma'am.
Okay, once again I will try to solve the same
Yes, ma'am.
problem.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Solve that, ma'am. Don't solve that particular question. Just solve any different question having same
Put the
arrival
same
time.
question, those who have not understood first solve it. Then after completing the chapter, I will also solve few more questions and also a number of questions will be given to you for your assignment. Okay.
Okay,
I
ma'am.
think
Okay,
most
ma'am.
of you have not completely
Okay,
understood it.
ma'am.
So, first of all, you listen what is primitive escape or the shortest remaining time for scheduling. Now, with primitive escape, when a new process enters into the ready queue, okay, now the scheduler compares the burst time of the new process with the remaining burst time of the currently executing process. First, remember this one. The scheduler compares the burst time of the newly entered process into the ready queue with that the remaining burst time of the currently executing process. Okay, remaining. Now, if the burst time of the new process is smaller than the remaining burst time of the currently executing process, then the current process is simply primitive and stored back in the ready queue with the remaining burst time. Okay. Otherwise, the current process will continue its execution. Now again remember, with the same arrival time of all processes, your primitive and non-primitive escape produces the same output. So now let's solve once again the same problem. I think most of you have not understood how to draw the Gantt chart. So with the same question, there are 5 processes: P1, P2, P3, P4, P5. Those who have not understood last class, once again, let's check that one. Okay. So I think it is visible to all of you. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So there are 5 processes: P1, P2, P3, P4, P5. Remember, if the arrival time of all the processes are same, then your SRTF or the primitive escape works in the same way as your non-primitive escape. Okay. So if the arrival time is different, then only the primitive escape or SRTF will be different than your non-primitive escape. So for the 5 processes, P1, P2 have the arrival time 0, P3 have the arrival time 1, for P4 it is 2, for P5 it is 4. Because when a new process enters into the ready queue, so just looking at the arrival time, you can find that when a process enters into the ready queue. At that time, the scheduler compares its burst time with the remaining burst time of the currently executing process. So here before drawing the Gantt chart, first all of you have to also simultaneously draw the ready queue. Okay, for better understanding, you represent the ready queue. Now ready queue stores the processes which are ready for execution, okay, and to allocate it to the CPU. Now if you will check at time 0, what are the processes in the ready queue? So at time 0 there are only two processes enters into the ready queue. One is P1, another is P2. Okay, one is P1, another is P2. So here I am just writing the arrival time at the bottom of this one, representing it as 80. Now the burst time here also I am representing. Burst time for P1 was 5 and for P2 was 3. Okay. So now at time 0 there is only two processes in the ready queue. So which process will be selected by the scheduler now? Who will tell me? If the CPU is available now, which is the processes, which of the process among these P1, P2 will be selected for execution?
P2.
P2, because P2 having smallest CPU burst
Least
time.
burst time.
Okay, so P2 is taken from the ready queue, allocated to the CPU. Clear? Now while P2 is executing, okay, now at time 1, just check, at time 1, a new process that is P3 enters into the ready queue. Got the thing? At time 1, P3 enters into the ready queue. Now what is the burst time of P3? That is 1 millisecond. So now what the scheduler will do? As this is a primitive step, so scheduler will compare the burst time of the newly entered process, that is 1, with the remaining burst time of the currently executing process. Currently executing process is P2. P2 has already executed 1 millisecond. So the remaining burst time of P2 is 2. So out of this 1 and 2, which one is smaller? 1. So what will happen now? P2 will be preempted. P2 will stop its execution and again come back to your ready queue. At time 1, as the scheduler finds that P3 is the new process which having the smallest CPU burst time compared to the remaining burst time of P2. P2 having remaining burst time 2. So now P2 will be preempted, stored back in the ready queue, and P3 will be allocated to the CPU. Any doubt? Any doubt at this point? Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So
Ma'am,
now
why the arrival time of P2 is 1 in the second time?
here the arrival time of P2 is not 1. Here P2 entered 1 second into the ready queue at time 1. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Arrival time initially it was 0, but P2 1 second enter into the ready queue at time 1. What the thing? It is not the arrival time.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Understand.
Now while P3 is executing, again at time 2, what is the next process enters into the system? What is the next process enters?
P4.
Yes,
P4.
P2.
P4.
P4. Just check in the arrival time. P4 is
P4.
the next process at time 2 enters into the ready queue. Okay. So for P4, what is the CPU burst time?
6.
So now just check, as P3 has only 1 millisecond burst time. So by 2, P3 has also completed its execution. So no need to again compare the CPU burst time of the newly entered process, that is P4, with that of P3, because by time 2, P3 has already completed its execution. So now at this time, at time 2, what are the processes in the ready queue? P1, P2 and P4. So what is the next process to be selected for execution?
P2.
P2, because P2 having the smallest CPU burst time now, that is 2. So now P2 will be taken from the ready queue and will be allocated to the CPU. Okay. So now again when P2 is executing, just check at time 4. So P2 continue up to 4. At time 4, another process enters into the ready queue, that is P5. So while P5 entered, that means at time 4, by that time if you will check, P2 has already completed its execution, because P2 here has the remaining burst time 2. So 2 plus 2, 4. By that time P2 has also completed its execution. So at time 4, there are 3 processes in the ready queue. One is P1, another is P4, another is P5. So now tell me, what will be the next process to be, for P5, the burst time is 2. So what is the next process to be allocated to the CPU?
P5.
That is P5. Because P5 having the smallest CPU burst time. So now P5 will continue up to 6. There is
6.
no further preemption, because there is no other processes provided here which are arriving after 4. So simply P5 will continue for 2 milliseconds. So it will finish at time 6. So after that, what is the next process to be allocated to the CPU?
P1.
P1. So the next process to be allocated is P1. So P1 having burst time 5. So 6 plus 5, that is, it will continue up to 11. Now finally, P4 will be allocated with the burst time 6. So it will continue up to 17. Got the thing? Got the thing, Asutosh?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now, just looking at the GNAT chart, we can find out the turnaround time, waiting time, and the response time. As you know, the turnaround time is finish time minus arrival time. Waiting time is your turnaround time minus burst time. And response time is your fast response minus arrival time. So now looking at the GNAT chart, you just check what is the finish time for P1. Finish time for P1.
11.
11. Arrival time is 0. So turnaround time is simply 11. For P2, what is the finish time?
4.
4. So 4 minus 0, that is 4. For P3, finish time is 2. So 2 minus 1, that is 1. For P4, finish time is 17.
17
Arrival time
minus
is
2.
2. So 17 minus 2, that is 15. For P5, finish time is 6. Arrival time is 4. So 6 minus 4, that is 2. If you will find the average turnaround time, it will find, I think we have got it at 6.6. The same problem when we have solved using the fast come fast serve scheduling, we have got the average turnaround time 9.4. The same problem when we have solved using non-preemptive SJF, we have got the average turnaround time 6.8, but here it is 6.6. So which one is better? You can clearly tell that. Now coming to the waiting time. For P1, what will be the waiting time? 11 minus 5, that is 6. For P2, 4 minus 3, turnaround time minus burst time, 4 minus 3, that is 1. For P3, 1 minus 1, 0. For P4, 15 minus 6, that is 9. For P5, again 2 minus 2, that is 0. And average waiting time we have calculated, I think it was 3.2. Now coming to the response time. For P1, what is the fast response, or at which time gets the fast response?
6.
6. So 6 minus arrival time, that is 6. For P2, at which time P2 gets the fast response? That means at which
0.
time P2 is allocated to the CPU first? That is
0 minus 0.
0 minus 0. Now for P3,
1 minus 1.
1 minus 1. So again here it is 0. For P4, fast response is 11.
11 minus 2.
So it is 9. And for P5, it is 4.
4 minus 4.
0. So when you will find out the average response time, you will find it is 3. So just check. This is the first CPU scheduling algorithm which we have discussed. Is of type preemptive one. Previously, in non-preemptive CPU scheduling, whatever problems we have solved, we find that the waiting time, response time of all the processes are same. But here you can find out the overall average waiting time, average response time are not same. They are different. So remember that point. Up to this, I have given you 2 notes. Remember those 2 points. First point you remember, in case of your non-preemptive CPU scheduling, the waiting time, response time of all the processes are always same. Second point you remember, if the arrival time of all the processes are same, then your non-preemptive SJF and preemptive SJF works in the same way. I hope now all of you are clear about this SRTF scheduling or your preemptive SJF scheduling. So now, though we find that SJF scheduling provides minimum average waiting time or minimum average turnaround time, but it has also some limitations. So how to determine the length of the next CPU burst time? Because the comparison is done based on that one. So the real difficulty with the shortest of first algorithm is how to know the length of the next CPU request. Now, for long-term scheduling in a batch system, the process time limit that a user specifies during the submission of the job is normally taken as the length of the next CPU burst. So in that case, users are motivated to estimate the process time limit accurately, because a lower value may mean a faster response. So SJF scheduling is used frequently in case of your long-term scheduling. It cannot be implemented at the level of short-term. Okay, because how to know exactly the length of the next CPU burst, that is the main difficulty. So here the value is normally being estimated. Exact value is not able to know, so it is estimated. And then the processes are selected with that shortest predicted next CPU burst value. So now the next CPU burst is generally predicted as an exponential average of the measured length of the previous CPU burst time. If you will consider the Tn is the actual length of the nth CPU burst. Tau n plus 1, that is the predicted value of the next CPU burst. Now taking an parameter alpha within the value 0 to 1, we can represent the predicted value of the next CPU burst, that is tau n plus 1. Sorry, here it was a mistake. Here it will be plus. Tau n plus 1 equal to alpha Tn plus 1 minus alpha tau n. Okay, so you remember Tn represents the actual length and tau n represents the predicted value. Now, or you may consider that the Tn contains the most recent information and tau n stores the past history. Now here alpha controls the relative weight of the recent and past history in the prediction. If you will make alpha equal to 0 in the previous equation, we will find that tau n plus 1 equal to tau n. So just check, if here alpha will be 0, this term will be removed. So now alpha tau n plus 1 equal to, simply here putting alpha 0, you will find tau n. So that means here the recent history has no effect. Currently, your current conditions are assumed to be transient. Now, if we will consider alpha equal to 1 in the same equation, we will find that tau n plus 1 equal to Tn. So, alpha value 1 means tau n plus 1 equal to Tn. That is, only the most CPU burst matters. So, history is assumed to be old and irrelevant. Now, the most preferable value is the alpha equal to half. So, with alpha equal to half, tau n plus 1 equal to Tn plus tau n by 2. So, that means your both recent and past history are equally weighted. If we will further expand the formula, simply in case of the way we have represented tau n plus 1 equal to alpha Tn plus 1 minus alpha tau n. So again in place of tau n, if you will expand it, you will find that alpha Tn plus 1 minus alpha whole into alpha Tn minus 1 plus 1 minus alpha. In this way it will continue to the term j alpha Tn 1 minus alpha n plus 1 tau 0. Now at your alpha and 1 minus alpha all are less than equal to 1, so each successive term has less weight than its predecessor. So you remember one thing, here the limitation of the SJF is that exactly knowing the length of the next CPU burst time is not possible. So it is estimated simply by using the exponential average of the measured length of previous CPU burst time. So the predicted value of the next CPU burst time, that is tau n plus 1, we can find out as alpha Tn plus 1 minus alpha tau n. So Tn that contains the most recent information, whereas the tau n stores the past history. Now the next type of CPU scheduling that we are going to discuss is your priority scheduling. Okay. So am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So up to now we have discussed two types of scheduling. One is your fast come fast serve scheduling. Second one is your SJF. Fast come fast serve purely non-preemptive. SJF, it may be preemptive, it may be non-preemptive. So if it is not specified anything, remember, if not specified whether preemptive or non-preemptive, then by default you assume only SJF means that is non-preemptive. Okay. Now the preemptive SJF, that is also known as your SRTF. So now come to the third one, that is your priority scheduling. Now in case of your priority scheduling, a priority number is normally associated with each process. the CPU is allocated to the process with the highest priority. Okay. Now, if two processes having the equal priority, then they are scheduled according to your first come first serve order. The way we have discussed in the SJF, if two processes having the same CPU burst time, they are scheduled according to the first come first serve order. Similarly, here, if two processes having equal priority, then they are going to be scheduled according to first come first serve order. Okay. Now, so as I have told you, priority is simply a number. So now a low number may be assumed as high priority or low number may be assumed as low priority. That means if a process having in the first concept low number high priority, if a process having number priority number 1 and another process having priority number let 5, then the process 1 will be considered having high priority. Okay, low number representing high priority, which is the default one. If nothing is specified, you have to assume that low number is high priority. Otherwise, in the question, it was clearly specified. Okay. So, low number, high priority, that means in the first case, you may also consider higher the number, that is lower the priority. Otherwise, low number is low priority, or you may consider high number is high priority. Now, priorities can be defined internally or externally. Now, the internal priorities are set by the operating system by using some measurable quantities like your time limits, the memory requirements, how many open files are used by the process, the ratio of the average input-output burst and the average CPU burst time. So, using all those factors, uh, considering all those factors, the operating system sets the internal priority related to a process. Now, external priorities are normally set by some criteria that are external to the operating system. Like what is the importance of the process, what is the type and amount of fund being paid for the computer to use that process, the department sponsoring the work and the others. So, considering the external factors, the external priority is set. So the user is not concerned about the priority number. So priority number is provided. So here the processes are selected based on the priority number. Previously in the SJF, what we are doing? We are selecting the processes based on the smallest CPU burst time. But here instead of scheduler looking at the CPU burst time for selecting a process, look at the process's priority number. Okay. So you may consider your SJF, the shortest of fast scheduling, as a special case of your priority scheduling, where priority is the inverse of the predicted next CPU burst time. Okay. So now again, priority scheduling can be preemptive or non-preemptive. In case of non-preemptive priority scheduling, simply if a process is allocated to the CPU, then it will keep it until unless it has terminated. But in case of preemptive priority, the way we have discussed the preemptive SJF, similarly in case of your preemptive priority, if a new process enters into the system, enters into the ready queue, then the scheduler will compare the priority of the new process with the priority of the currently executing process. Previously, it was comparing the CPU burst time of the new process with the remaining CPU burst time of the currently executing process in case of SRTF. But in case of your preemptive SJF, the scheduler compares the priority of the new process, the priority number of the new process, with the priority number of the currently executing process. There is no remaining thing here. Okay, simply it will compare. So if the new process having higher priority, then the currently executing process will be preempted and stored back in the ready queue. Now when it will store back in the ready queue, it will be stored with the remaining CPU burst time. Okay. Otherwise, if the new process's priority is smaller than the or lower than the currently executing process, then the currently executing arrival time, then your preemptive priority and non-preemptive priority scheduling will work in the same way. It will be different only if the arrival time of the processes are different, because when only a new process arrives in the ready queue, at that time the scheduler is going to compare the priority. Now, there is a disadvantage of priority scheduling that is known as starvation or indefinite blocking. So what is starvation? A low priority process may never execute. So what is the scenario? Suppose a process that is ready to run but lacking the CPU can be considered as blocked or waiting for the CPU. Now in case of priority scheduling, there may be situation that some low priority process waiting indefinitely for the CPU. Now suppose initially two processes enters into the ready queue, one having high priority, another having low priority. So obviously the high priority process will be allocated to the CPU first, and let's assume it is a preemptive one. Now why the high priority process is executing and the low priority process is waiting for it? Let in the meantime a number of other higher priority processes entered into the system. So what will happen to that low priority process? It will simply wait when all those high priority processes will complete, so that it will get the CPU. Though the low priority process has entered into the system from the very beginning, but there may be situation that due to arrival of a number of other high priority processes, it is prevented from getting the CPU. Okay, the low priority process may able to the low priority process may never execute. It may not be able to get the CPU. So it has been in the state of waiting indefinitely. So that is known as starvation. So there is a solution available to starvation that is known as aging. As time progresses, increase the priority of the process. So how the starvation problem is solved by the aging? So you may consider aging is a technique of gradually increasing the priority of the process that wait in the system for a long time. The way I have given you the example, the low priority process though have entered to the system from the very beginning, but it is not able to execute because after that a number of high priority processes has entered. So in that case, by applying the concept of aging, simply the priority of that low priority processes are increases with some time interval, so that after some time, obviously it should have a higher priority number compared to the other processes, so that anyhow it can able to get the CPU for completing its execution. So this is the fundamental concepts related to your priority scheduling. Now, before proceeding to the problem solving based on priority scheduling, all of you, first of all, attend the quiz. Within 5 minutes, all of you quickly attend the quiz. Within 2 minutes, quickly complete. After that, your response may not be included.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Just a minute, ma'am.
2 minutes are there. Okay, so let's solve problems based on your priority scheduling. Is it visible to you?
Yes.
Visible.
So here 4 processes are given, P1, P2, P3, P4, and the arrival time of all the processes are 0. Okay, so due to that, here it was not specified whether it is preemptive or non-preemptive, because if the arrival time of all the processes are same, then your preemptive and non-preemptive both works in the same way. Okay, both having the same result. Now the burst time of P1 is given 6, for P2 8, for P3 7, for P4 3. Now remember, in case of priority scheduling, along with the burst time, the priority number of each processes are also specified. So all of you write the priority number. For P1, the priority number is 2, for P2 it is 1, for P3 4, for P4 it is 3. Now listen carefully. If no statement whether low number is high priority or low number low priority is mentioned, then remember default case is low number high priority. Default one is low number high priority. Okay. Here also it was specified that low number means high priority of the process. Okay. So now let's check how the processes will be allocated to the CPU for execution. So arrival time 0 means at time 0, all these P1, P2, P3, P4 all are now available in the ready queue. So now at time 0, what is the first process to be allocated to the CPU? Now here the scheduler, instead of comparing the burst time, it will choose a process having the highest priority. So as here the low number is high priority. Now who can tell me what will be the process to be selected by the scheduler?
P2.
P2, because it is having the highest priority, that is 1. Low number is high priority. So here priority number 1 for P2 means P2 having the highest priority. So P2 will be allocated. Now once P2 will be allocated, it will continue up to 8. What the thing? Non-preemptive, preemptive both are same. So here P2 will continue up to 8 milliseconds. So after P2 has completed, what is the next process to be selected for execution?
P1.
P1. Because the next lower number or the next process having high priority is P1. So now P1 will start its execution. Now P1 will continue up to
14.
14.
14.
8 plus burst time, not the priority number. 8 plus 6, that is 14. So P1 will continue up to 14. So now P1 has also completed its execution. What is the next process to be allocated to the CPU?
P4.
P4, because next process having the high priority is P4. So now P4 is allocated to the CPU. Now P4 will continue up to
17.
17. The burst time for P4 is 3. So 14 plus 3, that is 17. Now the next one is P3. Okay.
P3.
So P3 will continue up to
24.
24. Okay. So this same particular problem also we have solved using your step. This particular problem also we have solved using FCFS. Now we are solving this using priority scheduling. Any doubt in the GNAT chat? Any doubt in the GNAT chat? Instead of looking at the column of the burst time, looking at the priority column, you can select the process to be allocated to the CPU. Okay. Now let's find out the turnaround time. So turnaround time can we find out? Finish time minus arrival time. So what is the turnaround time for P1? What is the turnaround time for
Minus
P1?
0. 14 minus
14. 14 minus 0, that is 14. For P2,
8 minus 0.
8 minus 0, that is 8. For P3,
24.
24 minus 0, that is 24. For P4,
17 minus 0.
17 minus 0, that is 17. So what is the average one? Calculate the average one.
Sixty-three by 4.
63 by 4. That is
15.75.
15.75. Now let's find out the waiting time. Here it is 15.75. Now waiting time, turnaround time minus the burst time or the CPU burst time. So what is the waiting time for P1?
14 minus 6.
14 minus 6. Most of the time students do the mistake, simply they subtract 2 from 14. Don't use the priority number in calculating the turnaround time, waiting time or response time. Priority number is only going to be compared for selecting the process. After that it has no use. Okay. So 14 minus 6, not 14 minus 2. Most of the time students do the mistake here. So 14 minus 6, that is 8. Now for P2, what is the waiting time?
8 minus
8 minus 8, that is 0. For P3,
24 minus 7.
24 minus 7, that is 17. For P4,
14.
17 minus 3, that is 14. So, what is the average value?
9.75.
39 by 4.
59 by 4, that is
9.75.
very good, 9.75. Now, let's find out the response time. Fast response minus the arrival time. So, for P1, what is the response time? For P1, what is the response time?
8 minus 0.
8 minus 0. That is 8. Okay. For P4,
0 minus 0.
0 minus 0. For P3,
17 minus 0.
17 minus 0. For P4,
14 minus 0.
14 minus 0.
9.75 average.
The same, that is 9.75. Okay. Clear?
Okay, ma'am.
Now, can you tell me how many context switching occur here? How many context switching occur here? If you will not include the first process and the last process, how many context switching occur here?
0.
Now you have attended the question in the quiz, same type of question. How many context switching occur here? In this particular program. What is context switching? Loading the saved state of one new process and storing the old state of the storing the state of the old process. That is context switching. So how many times here the CPU switches between the processes? How many context switching occur here?
One time.
How one time? First time occurs here. P2 to P1. P2 is executing with P2 to P1. So first one is here. Again, P1 to P4, second context switch. P4 to P3, third context switch. So how many context switching occur here? 3. What the thing?
Yes. Okay, ma'am. 3.
So can you tell me the previous problem that we have solved in case of your primitive escape? How many context switching occur? Just going through your NAT chat, tell me how many context switching occur in that primitive escape?
5.
Yes?
5.
5. In case of your non-primitive escape, the same problem with the non-primitive escape that we have solved. How many context switching occur there? Yes,
4.
4. So after this, how many questions we are going to solve? For all those questions, you also try to calculate the context switching. What the thing?
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you.
So next class, we are going to solve few more problems related to priority scheduling where the arrival times are different. So there we are going to discuss the non-primitive priority with the different arrival time of the processes, primitive scheduling with the primitive priority scheduling where the processes having different arrival time. Okay. So now all of you respond to your roll call. Abhijit Raut, Ankit Das,
Present, ma'am.
Abhijit is present but not responding. Okay. Ankit,
Present, ma'am.
Simon Pradhan, Patka Sarathi,
Present, ma'am.
Anya Jha,
Present, ma'am.
Ashutosh Mishra,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Nikhil Kumar,
Present, ma'am.
Rahul Senapati,
Yes, ma'am. Present.
Aisman Ray,
Present, ma'am.
Chandrakant Gupta,
Present, ma'am.
Atish Raj, Jyotish Naik,
Present, ma'am.
Pratyush Patel,
Present, ma'am.
Anup Kumar Mukherjee, Hariom Kumar,
Yes, ma'am.
Sandeep Mishra, Sandeep, Trivikram Patnaik,
Present, ma'am.
Smriti Ranjan Biswal,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Rajiv Dubey,
Present, ma'am.
Ma'am, Smriti Ranjan present.
yes, Sikrit Modak, Sikriti Modak, Krishna Murari Sharma,
Present, ma'am.
Sambit Kumar Sahu,
Present, ma'am.
Rihan Ahmad Khan, Divya Prakash Naik,
Present, ma'am.
Sakhan Chatterjee,
Present, ma'am.
Ashutosh Sinha, Debajyoti Das,
Present, ma'am.
Shikhar Swaroop, Soumya Mahapatra, Tirsak Samantray,
Yes, ma'am.
Ananya Lenka,
Present, ma'am.
Shruti Namra Mahapatra,
Present, ma'am.
Khushi,
Present, ma'am.
Neha Ranjan Pali,
Present, ma'am.
Sibulu Das, Nikita Rojalin Sahu,
Present, ma'am.
Krishna Samal,
Present, ma'am.
Abhishekar,
Present, ma'am.
Cape Mohammadi, Anjali Gaurav,
Present, ma'am.
Devrata Das,
Present, ma'am.
Alisa Patnaik, Vidya Darshan,
Present, ma'am.
Aditya, Diksha Kumari,
Present, ma'am.
Amrit Kaur,
Present, ma'am.
Rajesh Kumar Padi, Satyanarayan Singh,
Present, ma'am.
Prajwal Kumar,
Yes, ma'am.
Rupam Kumar Meher.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now you can leave the meeting.
Ma'am.
Yes,
Ma'am, Sikriti Modak present.
write in the chat box your registration number.
I'm Soumya Mahapatra. Present.
Write in the chat box.